Way forward.
What's way?
This way. Okay. I think it's feedback from me. I got this microphone this time. Okay. 3 people in the house. Mm-hmm. Let's see if this makes it better. What about
It's already charted, right?
the thing? Oh yeah. Hey y'all, hope you guys are doing okay. There's Daisy. She's so crazy.
Can you see yourself?
Uh huh. Yeah.
See if that helps.
Is the audio a little bit better, guys? Is the audio a little bit better, guys? Is the audio a little bit?
Turn that off for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, speak.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Hey, Mr. Williams. Oh, you just started getting my alerts? Man, I've been doing this for over a month. I've been back, y'all.
Perfect.
So I've been trying to get folks back. Well, everybody knows. First of all, if you are not a subscriber, please like, subscribe, hit the bell. I'm assuming most of you guys are because you're here early. Thank you for the likes. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It helps the algorithm. People don't understand that if you want good news to come out with YouTube, you must realize that if you don't like it, you don't comment, it doesn't get you any interaction. So the interaction helps so much. Bula! Oh, from Fiji. We got someone from Fiji in the house. Versala. I love your name. What up, fam bam, Shanta? Oh, they've been banning your own channel, Mr. Williams? That's crazy. Well, let me know, man, because I tell everybody you gotta really understand how the algorithm works and know that if people interact, it helps so much. Pierre, hello. April, hi. Melvin. Josie, hi. Aloha, my queen. Daniel, what up, brother? Sam, what's going on? Glad to see you're tuning in. Got some good news. Okay, let's start off the good news with talking about what happened in the Caribbean. So, I heard so many people talking about, oh, you got to be careful. You got to do this. Why do you have to be careful talking to people at a bank? You don't. You only have to be careful when you hear people use words like contract with a bank. Because banks don't give individuals contracts typically unless you're already bringing something to the table. I presented my idea and why I was there. They thought it was lovely. We had an awesome, about a 45-minute discussion about how tax avoidance works and how is totally legit. They showed me the bylaws. We talked about stuff. They asked me that I would bring my group down when the time was appropriate and get them set up. Uh, Everything worked out beautifully, and I was so glad to do it because I had so many questions about the tax stuff. And when they're like, if certain things, da da da, no tax. If you do da 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 da, no tax. And if you bring your company down there, it even has tax advantages for that. So I know a lot of people have businesses that they own. If you want to have some top tax avoidance stuff going on, then man, this is the time to really start getting your plans together. Sam, I'm sad that you're having so much trouble. Hey, Terry, Sean, Kay Dialgo, Terry, Wanda. Okay, well, we're 6 minutes in. I'm going to give it 2 minutes, and then I am going to get started. I have a ton of info to go over. And I want people to, you know, have a chance to catch the news in its entirety without me ripping through it. So, yeah, join the Noble Institution. That's the other thing. Noble Institution's doing great. We've had some great profitable trades. Not everything's perfect. There are ups and downs. So be aware that there are risk involved whenever you are, doing something that has to do with investing. Alrighty, we got 1 minute. We're gonna get started. Oh, Terry says hi. Daisy is currently licking stuff off the floor.
Oh.
I don't know why, but she does. Okay, 1 minute and counting. Hello, Regina. Hi, Pyra, Shanti, Praya. Hey, Kimberly, Cherry. Okay, guys, we got like 30 something seconds and count up. 5, 4. Shauna, greetings, April BB, Mr. B, what's gang? Oh, it's always gang. It's gang all day with me. You know what I'm saying? I stay down for the cause. And man, you talk about some cool news that is out and what's going on. Let's get to it. Should I turn on the bomb machine? Spam the bomb machine right now. You got 20 seconds. I'm going to count it off if you guys want to hear the bombs. Spam the bombs. If I don't get it in 20, then we're not doing bombs. Starting now. So far, no bombs. You don't want the bomb machine. No bombs. Okay, I got one bomb. That's good enough for me.
You got 2 bombs. You got more bombs.
I got more than 2. Okay, we're doing the bombs. Where is my bomb machine? We're gonna get to this news. Sound effects. There we go. Can I get a test bomb to make sure that I got the bombs going? Bombs away. Okay, let's do this. The delay of the federal budget or the federal government in activating the articles of the federal budget for the fiscal year 2021 until now, despite the passage of many months since voting on it, has sparked widespread controversy within the political corridors at a time when parliamentarians considered the weak oversight performance of the parliament is one of the reasons for the government's reluctance to perform its duty in many files, including the activation of the budget items. Another saw that the appeals submitted by the government against some articles of the budget have caused the suspension of the activation of those articles, exclusively pending the outcome of the appeal by the federal court. But in general, the appeal does not stop the implementation of the original budget in general. So, understand that the budget has not formally been introduced, but the budget's coming. Remember, the Parliamentary Finance Committee stressed that the budget articles, even the contested ones with the federal court, are valid. So we know that they are legal, they are valid, that means they can be enacted. The budget articles that were challenged by the government at the federal court are still valid and obligatory until the outcome of the appeals is decided and the final decision is issued by the court to validate or confirm the article. What proves the activation of these articles in the budget is all the court's rejection of the state decision demanded by the government regarding contested articles, which means that those articles must be applied, and they are valid and must be implemented by the Ministry of Finance and the ministries concerned with the matter. Activating the budget items and releasing allocations for projects after the House Representatives voted on them is within the competence of the executive authority, especially the Minister of Finance. So listen, no budget, no white paper. It's simple. So when we talk about budget, understand that you're really talking about the implementation of the reform process. Why aren't things moving as fast as they would call, or as I would call, moving forward? Or do we have a true understanding of actually what hasn't happened and why they haven't used all of the budget and the white papers to be initiated? That's important. That's important, okay? Why are they waiting so long? It's not that I have a direct answer for that, but I'm posing the question to you because you guys are super smart and you get it. You know why they haven't enacted the white paper. They haven't enacted the white paper because guess what? They would be on the trail to enacting the economic reforms. I keep saying that everything's going to really move around October. That's the reason why. You start the process too early, it doesn't gain enough steam. They basically just want to take whatever's left of this government, pass it off to this new government. Why? Because if it fails, that's who the people are going to blame, not the inadequacies and not the inaccuracies of the previous regimes. Don't you get it? It's the perfect setup for a new comeback. If the new government does everything it wants to do, we're all happy campers. If the government actually screws up or something falls or fails, what are they going to do? Just like in any political system. Look at what these guys didn't do. They didn't do what they said. We were going to do it. But they just wanted to have these new elections. Guess what? We gave them new elections and they still didn't do it. That's what they're setting it up for. That's why I really believe the new pressure of this new government is going to be the tide that carries us over the finish line. Now, Prime Minister's advisors for financial affairs, the appearance of Mohammed Saleh today, announced that Thursday that China consumes 44% of Iraq's oil exports, referring to the entry of the cooperation agreement with them into effect. China is the first market in the Iraqi oil exports, indicating that it alone consumes about 40 to 44% of the Iraqi oil exports, and that's about 800,000 barrels of oil per day. Slade noted that a smaller part of those exports are due of oil service contracts for the Chinese companies operating in Iraq, to which the value of 100,000 barrels per day was recently added, deposited a designated bank account to implement projects of the cooperation framework agreement that really became effective last month. We're going to take that last month, okay? And the financial advisor announced that April the possibility of raising the ceiling of the oil expenditures under the agreement with China to 300,000 more barrels per day. The Iraq and the Chinese government signed 8 agreements and memorandums of understanding and the agreement to deduct 100,000 barrels per day to China in return for the implementation of strategic projects by the Chinese companies such as roads, railways, hospitals, schools, residential complexes, ports, energies, dams, infrastructures, and others. Now, you're going to say to me, Mr. B, well, why is that important? I'll tell you why that's important. It's important because everything that these Chinese companies do before they start the economic reforms is one less project we have to worry about, that the money got drained from somewhere else, that it didn't happen. So we're making sure that the infrastructure plans for the country are going through no matter what. They're going to continue pumping oil. That oil's going to go to China. And guess what? Those projects are going to get taken care of. So when you hear people say, oh, well, what about the Kuwaiti money? We've solved the Kuwait project. Or basically the fundamental belief that the Kuwaitis were holding this vast sum of money and that Iraq was hoping to get that to start the infrastructure of the country. No. Now we know that major projects like the port that we've been talking about, as well as hospitals and schools, and many infrastructure work is being done at this point, and it's been going on for a month. And we also need to look to see that a lot of cellular towers are built, and excuse me, but the reason why I'm saying to keep up to date with those times, or excuse me, the things that are happening at this time, is so that you understand those banking implementations are huge at this point, because it is my belief that most Iraqis have cellular phones and don't use computers or tablets. So we want to look for these Asiatic companies, or China, excuse me, specifically, to be building cellular infrastructure, right? And we want to see them building energy efficiency. We want to see them building hospitals so that they can, of course, do a lot better. And of course, the world, excuse me, there was a meeting in Brussels on Wednesday between Prime Minister and the President of the European Commission to remove Iraq from its list of countries considered to have a high risk of money laundering. Now, they've already earlier this year removed Iraq from its list of high-risk third countries for the purpose of money laundering. According to the statement of the Prime Minister, Ms. von der Leyen praised the economic reform pursued by Iraq government and said the Commission supports Iraq's white paper and anti-corruption mechanisms. And I said to myself, well, of course they do. They want to go where Iraq is headed with the reforms that is needed to see the budget enacted so the white paper can go through and we can all start the countdown. Now, Wednesday, Iraq's foreign minister said this country still needs the support of the American forces affiliated with the international coalitions. In an interview with the American channel, the Iraq government has reached the conviction that there is no need for the American military combat forces, stressing that the Americans understand this issue. Hussein added the Iraqi government informed the Americans at the same time Iraq needs to develop the military situation and the training and the urgent need for the cooperation in the field of military intelligence and air power. However, their needs are for their forces to be strengthened for their coalitions in this regard that we are talking about the American forces in order to support them against the war against ISIS. If you ever notice, they need to strengthen their position in the actual region because they have one of the PMUs are a supreme fighting force. But the actual Iraqi army sucks. Like, they're not very good at all. So they actually need those guys to stay there for a certain amount of time to prepare for the fourth session of strategic dialogue between Baghdad and Washington, scheduled for Friday. That's tomorrow, according to a statement by the foreign minister. The fourth round of strategic dialogue is likely to be the last this framework. That this tour will not be limited to discussing military and security issues, but will include the set of issues related to bilateral relations between the two countries, such as energy, health, and others. The U.S. Regarding the U.S. Targeting attacks in Iraq, this is discussed with the Iranian side, the attacks on the airports and diplomatic mission, and asked them to intervene with some element with groups to stop the attack. So they know that there are thugs out there. These guys are just petty thugs. And you know what? They're not freedom fighters for Iraq. They're just Iranians out there stirring up a bunch of crap. That's why they need to have them stay there to train against anti-terrorism stuff, but they don't need to occupy there for the reason I'm about to tell you. The Iraqi minister stressed that the solution to this matter lies in opening a clear discussion with these groups, and some call them non-state forces, militias, or factions, to reach the final resort. So Iran needs to talk to the factions, Iraq needed to talk to America, and this is why. This screams sovereignty. Why else would you feel comfortable with the American forces leaving Iraq and still being able to fend for yourself from ISIS? And I love this line in context. The fourth round of strategic dialogue is likely to be the last framework. Last in the framework because they won't need anyone watching over their back, and every little move they make, yes, they do need military training and support. No, they don't need occupation. What sovereign independent, that's the same thing. What sovereign country is occupied by another country? In effect, Iraq is occupied by the United States. Now, they also need major training and counterterrorism training, but they don't need that occupation. Oh yeah, hey, I want you guys to invest a couple $100 trillion into our infrastructure and accounting, or into our infrastructure and our economy. Oh, but we're occupied by another country, and we have to use their money because, come on, guys, we got to get these guys out of there. Get them out of there so that the Iraqi being can grow and flourish. Rothschild Indian Bank announced on Wednesday raising interest rates on deposits in its accounts, encouraging citizens to deposit their money. Opening of a savings accounts for citizens is the bank's branches in order to deposit their money in the bank instead of hoarding it in their homes. Increasing the interest rate for the next 6 months from 4.5 as well as increasing it to 5.5. Then they added that, you know what, the interest rates on deposits for the next 2 years will be 6.5. Strengthen your deposits, okay? Interest rates give Iraq a fighting chance of getting dinar off the streets and in Iraqi banks, instead of those dinar leaving the countries for places like Iran and Turkey, or somewhere else that offers higher interest rates. For savings accounts, remember that more dinar in country takes dollars off the street, or takes dinars off the street. It also helps digitize the country because we all know the point of these people depositing their money inside of a bank is that they go ahead and use their card, which of course creates a digital framework, and instead of carrying large sums of cash around like an archaic society. Now, Prime Minister stressed on Tuesday the importance from benefiting from the European experience in post-war recovery. looking forward to European Union support the reforms undertaken by its government. The Prime Minister said in a statement received by the News European Council, Charles Mitch, during which they discussed relations between Iraq and the European Union, developed discussing the follow refugees and displaced persons and abandoning problems in their face. They returned to their homes after securing appropriate conditions for that. What are those appropriate things for misappropriated people? It sounds like one of those catchphrases that we always say. It's not Article 8, Article 140. It is the displaced persons in Kuwait that are looking for their reparations. Now they have a reason for it. This is the reason why I thought this was so interesting. Kazemi affirmed his aspiration for the European Union to support the reforms undertaken by the government in the framework of the White Paper, which includes financial, economic, and institutional reforms. Now, we know we've got the financial reforms. They're being handled outside of our basic knowledge. Economic reforms that are stated in the White Paper, we've discussed it 100 times. But we know that the institutional reforms have been going on because China is on the scene building all the stuff that they're supposed to, which indicates the call also discussed by the European Union in efforts to stop corruption and money laundering. I'm sorry, but that's always going to be a quest because you have money laundering and corruption everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's the perfect place. You're still going to have issues. However, I think the lesson behind this is the tedious move to have a cohesive relationship with the European Union is because of banking. Think about it. We're telling the American forces to get lost. We want to be sovereign. Are you going to run right back to America and have them occupy it with the excuse that they're helping you develop an integral banking system? We've got France. We've got the Swiss. We've got 100 ideas or metrics, or the Japanese for that matter. I know they're not the European Union, but think about it. Anything but America to put them up on a crutch. Banking infrastructure that the United States has, and it may be even on par, maybe a little less, but I'm going to say on par. But it gets them away from U.S. dependency. It also gives them an outreach into the international stage, working with your international partnerships in a world of sharing of ideas and as well as economic resources is a newly found step toward international sovereignty. Today's news is chopped up of awesome stuff. There was a workshop that happened, the WTO Ascension in Agriculture. Ascension in Agriculture was organized. It happened on July 4th to the 7th in Baghdad. Agricultural development consent with WTO standards needs enhancement in Iraq for facilitating and negotiating, leading the ascension process. Workshops provide a comprehensive overview of the agricultural sectors perceived within the WTO. Representatives of various government institutions from Baghdad and Kurdistan, including officials from the Ministry of Trade, Agriculture, Industry, participated in the workshop. The workshop was organized by the International Trade Center, ITC, as a joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations through strengthening of the agriculture, agri-food value chain, and improving trade policy of Iraq. That's their SAAVI project. The European Union, the project is contributing to inclusive economic growth and job creation, particularly for the youth, by improving Iraq's agricultural competitiveness and supporting trade development. It is also particularly focused on providing support to Iraq in the process of ascending to the WTO. Mr. Adel, I'm not going to try to say it, Director General for Foreign Economic Relations, Ministry of Trade, opened the workshop and reaffirmed Iraq's commitment to the ascension process to the WTO and assured the support of the Savvy team. Martin, Ambassador of the European Union to Iraq, Mrs. Irina, I can't say her last name, United Nations Resident Coordinator to Iraq were also present. Speaking on the occasion, Martin, the Ambassador of the Union, said, the EU has a strong interest in the Iraq ascending to the World Trade Organization in order to bring Iraq into the illustrious WTO group of 164 states. WTO ascension and the economic reforms that it entails represents a clean opportunity for Iraq to implement goals of the White Paper. Being a full member of the WTO will allow Iraq to improve its collaboration on trade and investment with all WTO members and ultimately support the creation of a decent work for Iraqis. The drive for economic reforms, including political commitments and resuming the WTO ascension process, was made clear, and a roadmap was implemented. The workshop included from experts from the WTO Food and Agricultural Organization, United Nations, and the International Trade Center. In addition, the trade policy technical team from the International Trade Center, Geneva, including blah, blah. Any state or customs territory having full autonomy in the conduct of its trade policies may become a member or accede to. So when we talk about ascension, I'm using the word accede. This is the definition of it. Any state or customs territory having full autonomy, being independent in the conduct of trade policies, can't be independent if you're occupied. Think about this. Accede to the WTO, but all WTO members must agree on the terms. This is done through the establishment of a working party of the WTO members and through the process of negotiations, which are just about complete. Now, I got this actually from the WTO website, and it said during the visit, the chairperson met with Iraqi's new ambassador, Abdul Karim something, WTO Director in General, Dr. Nagazi Akonji, sorry, I'm probably saying all these names wrong, the Executive Director of the National Trade Center, Ms. Pamela Cook Hamilton, Acting Secretary General of the UN Commercial Trade. The chairperson left Geneva with a very positive assessment of Iraq's ascension process. He felt that there was a renewed political engagement from the Iraqi government as well as from the mission in Geneva. He believes that as soon as the Secretariat receives the necessary negotiation inputs, the third working party could be held, and this could hopefully be completed by 2021. Vietnam. Oh my gosh, y'all. If you guys have not seen all the news about Vietnam, Vietnam is going off the chain. This has been like the best Vietnam stuff I've heard in several days. Vietnam has pledged deliberately not to weaken its currency any longer as an export advantage, reaching an agreement with the U.S. Treasury to refrain from competitive devaluation and to make monetary and exchange rate policies more transparent. The agreement announced in a joint statement by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, the State Bank of Vietnam, Governor Nguyen. Virtual meeting on Monday follows months of U.S. pressure on Vietnam over its currency practices and ballooning U.S. trade surplus. The old administration in its final weeks had declared Vietnam a currency manipulator and had threatened to impose punitive tariffs on imports from Vietnam, which now Vietnam did benefit from a shift in U.S. supply chains away from China amid a tariff war. Saw its good trade surpluses with the United States jump from 25% in 2020 to $70 billion despite the pandemic. Vietnam is a growing source of U.S. imports of furniture, electronics, computers, and apparel. In a joint statement, Vietnam confirmed its commitment under international monetary rules to avoid manipulating currency exchange in order to prevent effective balance of payments, adjustment, or to gain an unfair competitive advantage, and will refrain from any competitive devaluation of the Vietnamese dong. The Vietnamese central bank said the focus of its monetary policy to promote macroeconomic stability and to control inflation. But the central bank agreed, improve exchange rate flexibility over time, allowing the dong to move in line with the development of the country's markets and economic fundamentals, and to further modernize and make more transparent its monetary policy and its exchange rate within the framework. The Treasury said that it would inform U.S. government agencies about the agreement to address its concerns. I believe the State Bank of Vietnam's attention to these issues over time not only will address Treasury concerns, but will also support the further development of Vietnam's fiscal markets and enhance its macroeconomics and financial resilience. That's what Yellen said. Currency manipulator label from Vietnam had been imposed by the previous, but said Vietnam, along with Taiwan and Switzerland, had tripped its threshold for designation under 2015 law. The department at that time said it would commence enhanced agreement with Hanoi to correct the situation, which led foreign currency intervention and global current account surplus to exceed 2% of its GDP. So you always hear this 2% thing all the time, especially with Iraq. That's why I thought this was just so like, wait a minute. So they're way out of whack with their GDP. It's way overstated. So it's almost like if they're going to correct it, I wonder how many zeros they'd have to lop off its currency to put it in line with its GDP. And I'm going to tell you why. probe found that Vietnam was taking reasonable actions to push down the value of its currency to make its exports cheaper. But what you're looking at is what is a positive currency or current account balances, meaning that a country has more exports than imports of goods and services. Countries with consistent current account surpluses face upward pressure on their currency. A deficit is usually the result of an increasing net trade deficit where the value of imports exceed the value of exports. Hence, to understand this easily, a rising current account deficit leads to an increased supply of a nation's currency in foreign exchange markets. Why? People are paying you, you're paying them back in your currency. So it puts pressure on it. The U.S. Treasury Department and Vietnam Central Bank said they've reached an agreement under Vietnam will allow more flexibility in its currency exchange, easing the dispute with U.S. had as before, and we won't impose any tariffs. We will continue to improve exchange flexibility over time, allowing the Vietnamese dong to move into line with the stage of development of the country and of the financial and foreign exchange markets and the economic fundamentals, maintaining macroeconomic and financial market stability. That's all you need to know. I mean, that's huge right there.
So something big happened with Vietnam.
Something, man, they have to get their currency in line. When? I don't know. I believe the State Bank of Vietnam's attention to these issues over time, not only will address treasury concerns, but will also support the development of, this is the same thing, but the reason why I say this is they posted this, Bloomberg did one, Wall Street Journal did one. I mean, this was everywhere. The U.S. has reached a deal with Vietnam to dissolve a dispute over Southeast Asia's nation's currency that has soured economic relationships. Listen to this. They have reached an agreement. Where it will move to, I don't know. But Vietnam is trying to avoid manipulating its currency rate in order to prevent effective balances of payments. And the state bank is going to continue to manage exchange rate policy within a general monetary policy framework to safeguard proper functioning. Now, it is key to note, it is my opinion, what triggered this trade abnormality where all of a sudden now people are kind of look at this. Look at the GDP information that came out recently. Vietnam reported a trade deficit of $365 million in the first 5 months of 2021 as both exports and imports grew. Imports were up 36% year on year to $131 billion, 65% of them by foreign companies, according to the General Statistics Office of Vietnam. A positive trade balance signifies a trade surplus, while a negative value signifies a trade deficit. 2019, Vietnam's trade surplus amounted to 10.37 billion US dollars. So they're way out of whack between what should be and what shouldn't be. But they've also made an agreement to correct the process and to get things rocking and rolling. Huge news out of Vietnam. So before I cut this thing off, does anybody have anything else to say or add? Let's close it out and start it over here.
I don't see anything.
Nothing right now. Woo! A lot has happened. Let's get this thing rocking and rolling. Let's see if anybody's got anything to add. No, the rate won't come before the... I mean, here's the thing. A lot of y'all want to know this chicken and egg stuff. I don't know if the rate comes before. Because look at Vietnam. Vietnam's a member of the WTO. And theirs is like $1 to 27,000. So I don't really think that, depending on how their trade's negotiated, I know that they want a better... not an advantage point by having a low currency. However... I don't know. I really think you got to watch and see what happens with this new government. You don't want to see any postponement in of the new elections that are coming up, and just hold on for the ride. There's a lot of huge things that are out there happening. Well, y'all, that's all I got. The dong is moving. The dong is on the move. It's moving. So with that, everybody, no, Vietnam is completely different than Iraq. It is completely different. And no one would suggest that they're the same. However, it's just funny that all these things came out about Um,
Right.
I mean the dong, and it was just like every major American news publication that you could see. You never see that stuff.
And what's your rule of thumb?
If it's on 3, it must be.
Yep.
That's always my rule of thumb. Hey, Sherry. Well, with that, guys, I won't bug you guys any further. I won't hold this up. I'll see you next Thursday for the news. Hope you guys have an awesome night and join the Noble Institution. Bye. And it's Polo forever.